Oh, you're pumped for Doom the Dark Ages, are you? Well, yeah, you're the perfect demographic, aren't you? Well, no, I don't think you're dumb, but the designers of Doom might think you are. Let me explain. So Doom comes from a prestigious lineage, the series dating back to 1993, 31 years of iteration of this beloved formula. But even with this iteration, this DNA of collecting red and blue keycards in labyrinthine hallways persists. But in recent cases, Doom has been shifting to include designs from other popular titles in a way that feels ham-fisted. Well, no, they don't actually have ham for fists, Ludo. Food is later, calm down. In the Dark Ages, just like the developers did in Eternal, they've attempted to freshen up exploration between combat by adding platforming elements, but the problem lay in how these designs have been approached, because it seems as if Doom the Dark Ages designers think you're dumb. First of all, the game leaves nothing up to the player's interpretation. Paths of progression are clearly signified by non-diegetic symbols telling you where to go and even what mechanic is needed to get past it. Now, I can forgive this if it's on a map, but through all standard exploration, having the player see a key through a window, that's not enough. They need to have a floating line coming off of it so you can see its location from all possible angles. Not only is what to do clearly signposted, so there's no sense of discovery or problem solving, but you can only climb what the devs see fit, only grapple where they tell you can do so. For example, these green corpses protruding from the walls somehow mean that you can grapple to them. They just yoink you up from point A to point B. And considering these are never used in combat scenarios, they might as well have just been stairs for what they do mechanically. And this extends to any and all interactions with traversal, all overly signified busy work that even at its strongest points when used to hide secrets, just break immersion. Do you know what really fucks with the vibe of the Doomslayer character as a whole? He has weapons that can rip through time and space and can punch through a demon's armored chest like it's a children's paper mache art project, but can't bust through 3 planks of wood. Can jump off a building with no issue, but can't clamber over this 4-foot ledge to get the item I need. These are examples of every video game essayist's favourite term to throw around, ludonarrative dissonance. Not you. They use these gaps to signify where the rewards might be, but do it in a way that breaks the verisimilitude of the world and believability of what the Doomslayer is actually capable of. By this logic, the best defense against the Slayer would be to fortify hell with a bunch of knee-high walls, and let's just say that you resound yourself to go around and hunt for these rewards. There is no challenge at all because everything is so heavily signified. You vaguely walk in the direction of the thing you want and wait to see a glowing symbol, and that will always be the answer. There is quite literally no challenge to be seen outside of combat. Fire trap timing challenges, you can simply walk around while they're still actively spewing flames. Projectiles slowly flying towards you that can be blocked with a single button press. Spikes protruding from the ground, static, motionless, that do nothing and can be destroyed instantly. If these things were introduced during combat as added challenges, I could forgive it, but they're all explored outside of combat, so what is the point? The absolute height of mechanical challenge outside of combat would probably be the doors you need to open by utilizing your shield. It looks familiar, right? Yeah, it's because it's directly ripped from God of War. Just as similar to having locked items that require you to find 3 hidden objects around the map that you have to throw your weapon at. Someone on the team clearly loved God of War a lot, but completely missed what made these things so engaging in the first place. When you threw the Leviathan axe, it would embed itself in a mechanism to keep a contraption open. It then removed one of Kratos' most powerful weapons, and they would then introduce combat so he'd have to fight with his fists while the axe was inaccessible. Forced constraints and mechanical tests for the player to be able to progress. But in Doom, this isn't done a single time. You throw your shield, walk through the door, and then call it back to you. This might as well has been a keycard for all the complexity adds to the game. This isn't a test of strength of getting by without your most powerful weapon, but an annoyance for you to scour the environment for glowing symbols for you to bash and then move on. It's never, what do I want to do to get past this challenge? It's always, what does the game want me to do? And this extends now into combat. Just like with the players noticing how the devs have set up platforming to be clearly signposted over time, they've started to spot the tricks that they use to make them feel badass in combat too. For example, your shield is by far your most powerful tool, so players are going to upgrade it, and once this happens, you start to notice that a lot of shielded enemies that will cause your shield to bounce or explode on impact, they usually need their metal to be warmed up with gunfire for this explosion to take place, but certain variations of them will start combat with heated shields all lined up in a neat row. And once you notice this, the satisfaction of chain reaction destroying 20 enemies loses its luster because you've peered behind the curtain. This wasn't something you skillfully manufactured yourself, it was set up by the developers, and the enemies are destined to wait there indefinitely until you perform the requisite trick like the dancing monkey you are. And to top it all off, this game is probably the easiest of the bunch, and the only friction you're going to feel during gameplay, mate, is your thighs rubbing together, because each enemy has the exact same attack pattern that they simply regurgitate, and early on, they give you this stake gun that can effectively give itself infinite ammo when comboed with the shield, which you're gonna do because it can stun larger enemies, instantly take out smaller packs, and explode them as we mentioned before, and doing this empowers the upgraded stake gun, making it capable of one-shotting most enemies, meaning the majority of my run was this Van Helsing cosplay kit running stakes into demons like it was going out of fashion. Just look at the final boss's face! Why didn't I use other weapons? Well, within a couple missions of finding this gun, I had it and the shield fully upgraded, so why would I intentionally make myself weaker if they're both capable of such brutality? This also had a knock-on effect of making the game's secrets and rewards less, well, rewarding, because I had nothing of consequence to upgrade with said rewards. This runs counter to previous games that required the usage of multiple weapons to get by because of how they managed ammo counts. Here, everything was doable with ease via the stick gun's infinite ammo, the shield, and parrying. Oh yeah, fuck, parrying. It's in so many games nowadays. I believe the catalyst for this hitting the mainstream was probably FromSoft and especially Sekiro, and this mechanic bleeding into other genres isn't inherently a bad thing. Its inclusion can make a project come to life, like in Expedition 33's case, but why is it so prevalent? Well, apart from them being player-driven and rewarding in their own right, the windows in which parries are available are so nebulous and invisible to players, it makes them exceptionally easy to adjust on the fly to create exciting moments that feel earned purely through skill, but in fact are manufactured by the developers. You have the player learn the mechanic and slowly introduce harder and harder parry timings as they progress through the game. Then in pivotal boss fights, you can adjust the timings of their flurry attacks to make it a lot easier for players to deflect them, but in their minds feel if it's their skill that's led to this outcome. This all being done invisibly by handling the parry timings and juxtaposing them against their harder inclusions prior in the game. Doom has parries, a lot of them in fact. It's probably the core mechanic of the game, and don't get me wrong, it's probably its best aspect, but just like with its platforming, it doesn't quite understand what makes parrying engaging. First of all, it's way too easy, not just with its base windows, but also you can parry things when they're apparently off the screen, so your timing and even your positioning seemingly don't matter at all. To have the core manufactured moments we just discussed, you need to have areas where the player fails, and I never failed in Doom the Dark Ages. All enemies do the same exact parryable attack patterns throughout the game's entire runtime, which is all well and good if you have a vast enemy variety, but regardless of whether you're storming a medieval castle, in the pits of hell, in an eldritch nightmare realm, or inside the stomach of an old god, you'll be seeing the same suite of enemies over and over and over again doing the exact same attacks. And combo this with being able to one-shot most of them, and this takes combat from being a frantic fight for your life like in previous games to a slog that I barely needed to pay attention to. Mainly because there are no consequences. Most games that have an emphasis on parrying will include unparryable attacks mixed in to force the players to pay attention and reset their rhythm. But there's nothing of the sort here, unless you count the red attacks, but even if you try to parry a red attack rather than the correct green ones, your shield will still block it, so you can just spam the button and everything will be fine. I will say this though, the only time the game felt remotely challenging was during the final boss fight. Literally take the gloves off and show you what the game could be if they had doubled down on this parry mechanic. Relentlessly parrying his onslaughts is the kind of parry porn I want to see, but barely any of the game has this level of depth. Now, full disclosure, I played on the game's normal difficulty, as I always do, to see what the developers consider a reasonable amount of challenge for the average player, and honestly, I don't know if they thought their target demographic was literally brain dead, but this combat in combination with its puzzles and navigation hand-holding, I honestly felt kind of insulted playing this game. Like it was designed for children, but in reality it's a mature 17+ bloodbath. Now, as a dev myself, I know they would have relentlessly tested this game with a wide variety of gamers to find the median of challenge needed to make for a compelling difficulty, but this just feels like they went a step too far. The question is, does it feel better to require competent players to move the difficulty slider up as they find the game too easy, or does it feel worse for the casual players to bump the difficulty down because they found it too hard? Now, that's not an easy question to answer, and I think the dev team chose what they thought would work best for a wider market, and you can't really blame them for that. All of this being said, the pirate mechanic is honestly the next evolution this franchise needed. I just wish more time was spent going hard on this idea and making it a fully fledged mechanical journey, and the same can be said for its platforming and its newest inclusions with mechs and dragons. Now, I don't know how they managed it, well I do, but they somehow managed to take something that is inherently badass like piloting a mech or riding a cyborg dragon and made boring filler missions out of them. Fighting inside the mech has the same issue a lot of games have, where it just feels as if you're playing the same exact character fighting the same exact enemies, but biglier. Well, it's a word, shut up. Combat is a 2-button combo, punch and dodge until you can perform a finisher. It's also plagued with the same baby's first parry syndrome too. You can be pinned up against a wall by multiple giant demons and press a single button while their weapon is in a different postcode and still dodge successfully, meaning you are basically untouchable. Which is odd, because they go to such a huge effort to try and make these giant demons feel foreboding and badass, but once you get a single moment to 1v1 them, that illusion is completely shattered. There's no Worf moment here, where one of them defeats a powerful ally with ease to show us how strong they are, so that when we do fight them in a mech, we can understand its power. The only time they attempt to do this, it's immediately followed up by us shooting its dick off via a turret. Because of this, all of the mech levels honestly feel like you're slowly walking around a medieval model village, punching the staff or asking you to pay for a picture of you and the dog on the log flumes. Now, for the dragon riding, they slowly introduced parrying and dodging mechanics alongside its new mode of traversal, and just like with the mechs, I thought the level's simplicity might be because the game would expand upon these mechanics later on, but nah, the same Simon Says waiting game with the same animations and same enemies over and over and over again. For the majority of the dragon-based missions, which isn't many by the way, you're barely riding the dragon at all. It's more like a taxi with miniguns attached to it. Now that I say that, this sounds pretty cool, but in reality, all of this hopping on and off of the dragon to do the same task repeatedly really draws attention to their asset reuse. These badass moments like diving through the air to be caught by your dragon at the last second are awesome the first time you see it, but mind-boggling that this dragon has such a great sense of timing the 5th time this happens in the same mission. What should feel cool feels like repeated cheap imitations of better works.
Bullshit. Derivative.
I will say that there's something commendable about a game trying to unify a bunch of different mechanics and gameplay modes under one umbrella, and Beyond Good and Evil, my favourite game of all time, does this. It's successful in some areas and falls flat on its fucking face in others, but at least they experimented and tried. But the difference between Doom the Dark Ages and Beyond Good and Evil is that the latter's exploration of crazy mechanics is also used to make us care about its characters more. Doom doesn't have any of that subtlety, and I don't expect it to. It's fucking Doom. But they also have a narrative that seems to take itself too seriously, so when you put the silent protagonist meat grinder that is the Doomslayer in those situations, things just feel off. All of the plot seems to happen around him and not to him. 90% of it happens through cutscenes where he's not even present, so the plot then has to be explained to him again through more cutscenes. He has mostly no clue why he's doing the things that he's doing, which was fine in the earlier games where the minimal context was part of the setup for its jokes, but here they attach an overarching serious storyline. He ascends towers and delves into the darkest depths of hell, wading through seas of demons to walk into a cutscene, watch the plot happen around him, and then have it leap through a portal with no more context leaving the situation than he did coming in. And what is most baffling to me is the fact that the Doomslayer narratively fails at nearly everything he attempts to do. You can spend the entire time barely getting touched, parrying everything hell can throw at you, but get chucked off a ledge in a cutscene or stabbed or killed for your efforts. The only time he succeeds is when he goes berserker rage mode because the big bad killed his Uber Eats delivery dragon that we saw for 2.1 missions, which is less than 10% of the total missions in the game. The narrative, combat, and puzzle platforming felt like an insult to the player's intelligence, and I truly just wish this game concentrated more on what made Doom Doom. The most fun I had with this entire game was with the level Sentinel Command Station, which felt like a traditional level. It was about collecting keys, running and gunning. I just wish they focused on iteration of those ideas rather than the addition of new ones, because when you're swarmed by demons and have to improvise a way to survive, it feels like Doom again, but when I'm kicking boxes, taking a taxi, or punching biglier boys, I can't help but feel like someone higher up on the team wanted to make a different game entirely and was told to slap the Doom IP on it. But what do you think? I totally understand that my opinions on this game are probably going to be a tad divisive, but before you go calling me a tit in the comments, why? Not why am I a tit, I know that, but why did Doom the Dark Ages resonate with you? I'm genuinely curious, and there are no wrong answers. Let us know down below, because we would love to discuss this with you. Oi, Ludes, I just checked and I saw that you're not in the Second Wind Patreon. And can I tell you, Missy, that you are missing out? We have Patreon Hangout movie nights, we have exclusive experimental videos, and a bunch of other goodies that you could be involved in, but I guess you're too busy with, I don't know, not having thumbs. Well, yeah, that is fair. You do work here too. Okay, yeah, I'll get you added to that after this. Alright, time to say goodbye, Ludo. Alright, bye guys.